And welcome to this edition of County Line. Cultural diversity, human relations have been the subject of many conversations here in Broward County lately, and we have two of Broward's outstanding citizens here to discuss and enlighten all of us on these important matters. Broward County Public Defender Howard Finkelstein, and also he's known to the TV audiences, of course, as Help Me Howard, and Shaan Dhanji with the Florida Commission on Human Relations, and welcome to you too, Shahrukh.
Thank you, Frank.
Help Me Howard. Howard, how long has that been on TV?
We're in our 10th year this year, and I don't think anybody thought it would go for 10 years, and I know I certainly didn't think so.
A lot of attorneys in the town, and you might have been an attorney at the time practicing, but how did it happen for you quickly?
Actually, it was just luck. When O.J. Simpson got arrested, that's when it started, and they called me to go on TV, and I wasn't going to do it because I was afraid to go on TV and make mistakes because I didn't really know all the stuff in California, and I said to my wife, you know, if I go on, people will realize I'm not as intelligent as they think they are. And you know what she said? Nobody thinks you're that smart anyway.
So go ahead.
So that's how I did.
So you were watching the Bronco go down the interstate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Glad to have you here, Howard. And one more thing, give us a quick overview before I get into Shahrukh about what the Public Defender's Office is and its charge.
The Public Defender's Office was created so that the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution, the right to counsel, was afforded to all citizens. It's really the thing that not only separates us from every other nation, it's what makes us better. If you're poor and you are in this country and you are charged with a crime, whether it be stealing a piece of gum or murder in the first degree, if you can't afford a lawyer, one is provided to you by the taxpayers, and that's what the Public Defender's Office does, provides representation to those who can't afford it themselves.
Now, prior to 1963, it didn't exist, did it?
It didn't exist, and what people don't know is the Sixth Amendment, when it said you had a right to counsel, used to mean if you could afford a lawyer, you had a right to bring one in. But if you couldn't afford one, well, you didn't have that right. Gideon, a really old, cranky old guy from the middle of the state of Florida, wrote his own petition to the United States Supreme Court after he was convicted, saying this isn't fair, and the United States Supreme Court said, you're right, and as a result, public defender offices were created throughout the country.
Howard, I remember we were talking a while back when we were looking for, the county was looking for a new courthouse and you needed more space. What has ever happened? Do you have more space? And how many lawyers and employees do you have?
We have close to 200 employees, about 155 lawyers. At the time, the chief judge, the past chief judge, wanted to throw the public defender's office out of the courthouse. There was a backlash from a lot of different people, and the county commission realized it would be wrong to take 1/3 of the criminal justice system and remove it from the system and thereby deprive my clients, poor people, from an equal standing that those who had money and could afford their own lawyer would have.
The haves and have-nots.
The haves and have-nots.
Okay, good. Shahrukh, you are the Commissioner on Human Relations. Lots of us weren't familiar with that term. We're getting a little more familiar with it now. You do have a new office location right across from the courthouse, but would you give us a little brief overview of what the Commission is charged with?
The Commission is fundamentally charged with any civil and human right violations, to enforce any of those violations in the state of Florida. And that's been since 1969. It's really the Florida's reciprocal act to the state act, to the federal act on equal rights.
And discrimination and all types of complaints come through from employment right through whistleblowers acts, et cetera?
Yeah, we go from employment, we go to sex discrimination, we go to employment discrimination, disability, age, including whistleblower investigations within state agencies, predatory lending, and advisory roles in human trafficking.
Now, there are a group of commissioners around the state, a dozen of you?
There's 12 of us.
You have an executive director in Tallahassee?
We do.
How do you operate? I mean, what type of remedies are you involved in, and how many are available?
Well, typically, when you get a complaint that comes in, it goes through an intake process. So before you can even get to remedies, there's a guideline of procedures that have to be followed to see if it can be resolved before it gets to the commissioner level. We try mediation. There is a complaint that can be filed. If cause is determined, that's when it moves forward. And it goes to the Department of Administrative Hearings. An administrative judge hears the case, decides the case, and only on appeal does a commissioner get to hear the case again to either remand back to the administrative judge or to affirm his findings.
This is ongoing every day through the year. I mean, you may not be quite as busy as Howard's office, but it's a daily process.
It is a daily process. I'm not going to compete with Howard's busyness. Howard's a friend, and I'll tell you, we both work on similar issues in so many different ways. But I only have 65 staffers in our organization as opposed to his 200. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the dovetails of your thing is the Community Relations Service, and what is its charge?
Community relations is really set forth to do the education and the outreach to make aware to the public who and what we are, including business owners, including other municipal and state agencies.
It's like a PR thing, not PR so much, but informative information.
Information, education, try to mitigate the possibility of certain complaints not getting filed if people know what their rights and rules and the guidelines are.
Now, Howard, you do dovetail with the Community Human Relations
We
Commission?
have, especially recently. I think people have been reading about some, we'll call it misstatements by some judges in Broward County. Right. And as a result, it has dovetailed because when you're talking about prejudice or discrimination, when you really see where the rubber meets the road, it's in the criminal courtrooms. It's one thing, and it may be bad to have a prejudicial thought, but it's another thing when that thought really is carried into reality and manifests in people's sentences or treatments in our criminal courtrooms. And as a result, we both have shared a concern that we need to educate and move forward because Broward County has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. We have become a majority-minority community. And when I started 30 years ago, this was a community that was by and large all white. There was very little involvement by people of minorities, and as our community has changed, we haven't changed quite or kept up to speed with the change of the demographics, and I think that's why some of the statements that you've heard were not coming from an evil heart or a malicious heart, but were coming from an unenlightened heart.
Without getting into detail, and we'll stay more generic on this, but I think you were one of the first people to raise some issues on some of the comments made on the bench on diversity issues and ethics and stuff. Talk about that a little bit in kind of a generic fashion, and then I want to see where Shahrukh came into this picture.
What happened was, in Broward County, there's one rule that has been in effect forever and ever, and it's an unwritten rule. And that rule is you don't speak publicly about the misdeeds or misstatements of the judiciary or those in power. I'm not part of that club. My job as a public defender is to speak and to speak as loudly as I can to as many people if I believe that either certain statements are causing people in the minority community to lose faith in our system or to feel that they won't get a fair shake. So I've been very public about it because when it comes down to it, it's not what's in the heart or mind of the judge who made the statement. What matters is, what does somebody who is a member of a minority feel when they hear that their judge made that statement? Do they believe that they will get a fair shake? If they don't believe that they'll get a fair shake, then it's inappropriate and something has to be done because all people stand equal before the bar of justice. And if they don't feel that they stand equal, something has to be done to correct it.
So you brought this issue forward, and then Shahrukh and the commission got involved with the chief judge, asked him to come in. Is that basically what happened?
Yes, it is.
Shahrukh, pick it up from there. Now, what happened? The chief judge, the former chief judge called upon you?
He answered everything for me.
Okay. You can be dismissed now if you want. You can go get a cup of coffee in the green room if you want.
Here's what happened. Yeah. I think the event that triggered the chief judge to call me was Judge Green's comment of the term NHI. And he called me in.
We're going to stay generic so we can say Judge Black or Judge Purple.
But hopefully you're editing this part. But,
no, we don't. This is non-edited.
But what happened was that he asked me as a commissioner, not the commission, but as a commissioner to come in an advisory role to look over the diversity issues that may be impacting and are impacting the judiciary at that time. And that was my invitation by the chief judge to come in and take a look. you know,
May I interject? Was this unique for you to have this kind of a call?
absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think this has
Not
happened.
commonplace.
Not commonplace. I certainly considered it. I wanted to do something to better our community down here, and I felt if I was being called upon in that public service regard, I was going to participate. Howard is absolutely right. We are a minority-majority county today, and the judiciary, in time, starts to reflect the community. But there are four-year cycles in elections. Judges stay on. And so the era that brought them on is the era they're still in when they came on. The judges that have been there for 30 years on the bench have a different perspective in some respects than those that were brought on 18 years ago. And so you're always evolving with that attitude and the aptitude in the time when they come on the bench. And I'm sure that in 10 years from now, there'll be more minorities standing up for election than there were 10 years ago.
No doubt about it. We can see the diversity changing drastically, and I'm sure for the better in this county at this present time. Let's move ahead a little bit then. What were your findings and recommendations to the Chief Judge?
Well, the recommendations were, first of all, Broward County took the initiative by a Chief Judge's order or a Chief Judge's letter creating a formal diversity board. But after creating it, there were no real guidelines, parameters, bylaws, or regulations that were articulated or spelled out in any fashion. So one of the things I was asked to look into was how do we start structuring that kind of an organization? Now, there may be legal issues out there of whether there's a legitimacy or the law even allows for such a board to exist. But if the Chief Judge, who's the administrative judge of that circuit, says we're creating this, then I'm working under the guidelines of what he's created. Okay. I leave it for the judges and the lawyers to figure out what's legally acceptable or not. And so the recommendation asked very simply to add a fifth member to this board because that otherwise comprised of only 4 individuals. So if you've got a tie vote, how do you break the tie vote?
Okay.
There were some very basic fundamentals that were proffered. And who that third person ought to be, again, I put forth, as an individual commissioner coming to advise, 3 different models of who that could be. So I left it not only as it was really just a suggestion.
Any conclusions made yet by the Chief Judge? Or
I think
we're going through a transition right now.
We're going through a transition. I think we have to give time to the new Chief Judge-elect, Victor Tobin, to ascend to his position formally and give him time to situate himself and then take it from there. It would be unfair to ask him at this time what he would want to do. Now,
Judge Tobin was elected from amongst the other judges to become the new Chief Judge. Howard, do you have a good working relationship with Judge Tobin?